The diameter of the Sun is decreasing at a rate of about 1.5 meters per hour, which is 1% in 1,000 years. 6,000 years ago, at the time of creation, the Sun was only 6% larger. Increasing the size of the Sun by 1% over 1,000 years and moving into the past, you will face the problems of evolutionary calculus of time. 100,000 years ago, the Sun would have been twice as large as it's now. 20 million years ago, it would have touched the surface of the Earth. The existence of Mercury and Venus is out of the question, so it's clear that the Sun is not billions of years old. If the age of the Earth was calculated in millions of years, then it would be covered with a huge layer of cosmic dust up to tens of meters in height. Meteoric dust falls to the ground in tens of tons, but its amount and nickel deposits in the Earth's crust make it possible to assert that the age of the Earth does not exceed 6,000 years. According to scientists, the surface of the Moon should have been covered with 345 meters of meteoric dust for 4.5 billion years. However, astronauts found about 1 centimeter of dust on the Moon, which proved that the Moon, like other planets, is young. Recent studies have confirmed that the common ancestor of the entire human race, the mitochondrial Eve, lived about 6,500 years ago, but not 200,000 years as previously stated. The revised molecular clock shows the intensity of mutations in human mitochondria. Biblical timeline is correct, but evolution is wrong. The Earth is not millions of years old. The oldest living organisms on the planet are 4,300 years old. Giant redwoods have been standing since the time of the worldwide water catastrophe that happened 4,350 years ago. The age of the oldest trees in the world is only thousands, but not tens of thousands of years. Oil and gas could not stay in the thickness of the Earth's crust under a pressure of 1,300 atmospheres for millions or tens of thousands of years. It's scientifically proved that the rocks above oil can maintain the pressure for less than 10,000 years, and then they will begin to crack. But the stones are still intact, because the Earth is young. The amount of salt in the ocean brought in every year from the rains matches the age of 6,000 years. If the Earth is billions of years old, where is all the salt? The research of the river deltas of the world's great rivers reveals their recent formations in the flood. The Mississippi River brings 80,000 tons of soil per hour to the Gulf of Mexico Delta, but it's not filled with mud. The river and the Earth are not millions of years old. Also, at the mouth of all great rivers of the world, there is as much mud as it would have accumulated in 4,500 years. The history is too short. The oldest documents found date back to 3500 BC. All records testify to highly developed civilizations. Homo sapiens haven't existed for 190,000 years. Man appeared 6,000 years ago, which is why we have a dating of the development of writing about 5,000 years ago. The Nobel Prize winner Willard Libby, the author of the radiocarbon method, said, "This method is not suitable for measuring the age of the remains that are more than 50,000 years old. In 30 years of using this method, we have found that its accuracy is greatly reduced at periods over 8,000 years. This method is valid for ages up to about 6,000 years. In the refined model, we will get even less time." The specialist in this field, Dr. Melvin Cook, creationist, the Nobel Prize candidate, said, "There is a sufficient reason to consider this method applicable only to determine the age up to 3,500 years." When the radiometric method was applied to determine the age of volcanic rocks of the Hawaiian volcano Kilauea, which is only about 200 years old, the study showed that its age is 22 million years. You have to admit it's a serious mistake. During the eruption of the Hualalai volcano in 1801, rocks were formed, dating of which by the content of potassium isotopes showed that their age is from 160 million to 3 billion years. As we can see, even the author of the radiocarbon method himself admits its fallacy. Here is some evidence that carbon-14 dating is incorrect. The shell of a live mollusk has been dated to 2,300 years old. The freshly killed seal was dated to 1,300 years old. The shells of living snails were dated to 27,000 years old. One part of the mammoth was dated to 295,000 years old, and the other 44,000 years old. The living penguins were dated to 8,000 years old, really old penguins. This is not a complete list of mistakes of this method. There are also other dating methods, but they are considered to be even worse. In order not to be deceived, subscribe to the channels of Julia and Stanislav Saltynenko.